Hello, and welcome to this first in a news series in which we are looking at social activism in all its aspects, including profiling social activists. I am very pleased to be here in the hearing room at Arlington's Town Hall with attorney Neil Osborne, who has joined us for today's conversation to talk about your own journey to becoming as you are, I know, one of the vice presidents of the local NDoubleACP chapter. And so I'd love to, begin the conversation, just find out a little bit about what the roots of your own clear commitment to social activism are. So tell us a little bit about where you grew up and how.
James, thank you for having me on and for inviting me to this chat. I am excited to share. I am a former president of the Mystic Valley branch of the NAACP. I actually did that for 8 years, and before that, I was the vice president for 2 years. But I'll share with you my journey with the local branch of the NAACP. I had grown up in West Medford, went to Medford High School, went on to college at UMass Amherst, went on to get a master's degree back at UMass Amherst, and from there went to get a law degree at Suffolk University Law School. I was back living in Medford, and I describe it as a few old ladies from the community knew what I was doing and said, "Hey, Neil, we have someone who's a member of our branch, and they have an employment issue. Could you help them out for us?" And sure, I'm like, absolutely. These are people that have known me since I was knee-high. Of course I'm gonna help out. Well, lo and behold, that was a targeted setup.
They set you up.
They were hoped I would help. I went to that first branch meeting, got to learn a little bit more about what they were doing locally. I attended more meetings, and then sure enough, within a year, they were saying, "Hey, Neil, would you take on a leadership position?" Absolutely, sure. Bang, I was the vice president.
That's great. So mission accomplished in a sense.
Yeah, so they knew they had a sympathetic soul, someone who understood, and they were able to draw me in to the local organization.
As you said, you attended Medford High, went on to UMass, then a master's, then a law degree. Was that a typical trajectory for other folks that you knew growing up? Or, if not, where did that drive come from?
I guess it wasn't typical, but it was becoming the norm. So I'll share a little bit about my background. I am Jamaican by virtue of my parents. They are both Jamaican, born in Jamaica. I was born their third son. I have 2 older brothers, and we were born in England. In 1969, my parents uprooted us from England because the English system at that time would track their young children. So you could test. If you didn't test well, they weren't going to spend their money and time in educating you. Luckily, my father had a brother who was living in Medford and said, "You know what? You come live with us." And that's how we all came to the United States back in 1969. So my parents, middle class, immigrant folks, new to a country, new to learning the culture. They got any job that they could, and their main focus was, we are here making sacrifices so you, our children, can have an opportunity. They said it's your job to go to school and learn. And we kind of took that to heart. Now, growing up in the neighborhood of West Medford, it was primarily African American. Hardworking folks, my friends' folks were doing the same thing. Hardworking, blue-collar folks, they wanted their kids to have opportunities they never had. Today, I can look back, some got the message, some didn't. So I can look around and say, all right, that person achieved something, that person got somewhere, that person got sidetracked, and there was enough drugs and trouble to sidetrack you. And I'm 52 now. I can look back at some of those young kids I was hanging out with and could see the different paths some of us had taken.
And just talk to us a little bit more about that. I mean, obviously, everybody's different, and I also share with you a similar background in that my father's family is Puerto Rican. My father was the first to kind of make good within this society, and kind of he felt a certain pressure from his parents, not without love, with love, but nonetheless an expectation that they had that he would apply himself, and he passed that on to the next generation. So I do know how it feels to grow up in a culture like that.
Right.
It's very helpful for one's professional aspirations in a lot of ways.
Yes.
But what would you say, from your observation, from your living the life you've lived, what are the factors that go into you heading down the path you went and those who didn't? Does it have to do with just individual character in all those situations, or what?
I think sometimes you just think you're a little bit blessed. There wasn't a moment where I didn't know that my parents loved and cared about me. When they were telling me, Neil, you had to be in by 8 o'clock and I had to leave my friends, it wasn't because they didn't want me to enjoy myself and have a good time. They knew that they wanted me to focusing on something else. And sometimes they had to make the break. And I can look back and say, yeah, I understand what you were doing. And I'm glad that you were able to do that for me. And it was a little bit of, you know what? I believe what my parents were telling me that I could achieve. I could hear people in my community saying, Neil, we see something special in you. Keep at it. There were some folks who would come who didn't know me and they would dismiss me. And my parents told me, take that as a challenge because people will look at you, see that you're a black man and dismiss you. You take them on, you challenge them. I'm like, yeah, I'm up for that.
So what I hear is that some of what helped you to have the kind of fortitude and perseverance to move through your life the way that you have and to achieve the things that you have has to do with this community in which you were nurtured.
Absolutely.
And that, would you say, I don't know, for people who don't know enough about African American communities, either in Medford, in the Boston area, or around the country, how typical is that community in West Medford, would you say?
I guess the uniqueness of West Medford, we were so close together that we got to know each other's parents, their grandparents, and our children. I think what was typical, and I'm speaking generally about African American communities throughout Massachusetts and the nation, is there was a sense that education was the opportunity to success. That maybe there was a teacher in your community and they were looking out for everyone in the community. Maybe there was a lawyer or a doctor somewhere that could say, you know what, we understand maybe we don't get equal footing, or the footing isn't always the same as someone else, but there is a way. And there's a way, there's others around you, there's other people out there that if you could find it, we will help you get there. So it wasn't bleak, and I was growing up in the 70s, in the 80s, I knew there was a possible way, if I could apply myself, I could find myself into a career where I could have my own destiny, make my own income, raise my family the way I wanted to.
So I understand that you have been in private practice as an attorney for pretty much all your professional life?
20 years now on my own.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
How does the work that you did with the NAACP, how does that supplement or complement, or is it completely distinct from the work that you do as a lawyer?
Good question. I always kind of viewed my NAACP work as how I gave back to my community. Because doing the work of the NAACP, that actually gets done at the local level. It's a national organization with a national brand with a 107-year history. People literally gave their lives promoting or talking about opportunities for people of color. And I guess I took that to heart, that someone who didn't know me thought so much about the future of this country that they risked their lives. So I'm like, all right, I can do this little thing. I can come to this meeting, I can talk with local folks to make them understand what the struggle is and what the struggle is currently and what the struggle will be in the future. So it was a way for me to give back part of what I had acquired through the education. Now, the work that I do discrimination work. When I first graduated Suffolk Law School, I was actually working part-time with the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority. And I'll tell a quick aside story.
Sure.
I was a paralegal, and I was taking the bar, and there was an opportunity to become staff counsel, so you would be official counsel for them. But my boss, who I was working for, never came to me and said, hey, Neil, there's an opening in this position, would you like it? So I had to think, all right, what can I do without asking directly? I teamed up with the labor relations professional over there. I had told him, could you help me out? My boss hasn't asked me to fill this really important, I get to be a lawyer position. And he said to me, Neil, I'll gladly help you out. You know what, Neil? If your boss over in the law division doesn't want to hire you as staff, I'll hire you as a labor relations person because I had a master's degree in labor relations. The moment that my friend in labor relations mentioned that in a meeting, my boss tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, Neil, how would you like to be staff counsel? I said, I would love to be. And I thanked that gentleman, someone who helped me along the way get to where I wanted to be. But I did discrimination work for them, defending discrimination claims, along with doing some labor relations work. And I did that for 3 years. But all the time I knew, you know what? I'd rather be helping plaintiffs make their cases. And that's sort of how I left a comfortable paycheck job to go take the risk to say, I want to help more folks on the plaintiff side.
Yeah, I'll just share as well that I also went to law school and took the bar, et cetera, but at some point I was up against that decision. Am I going to go with my values for what I do with my life, or am I going to go with what's comfortable and what could make me a lot of money, et cetera? I opted, in fact, to become a teacher rather than practice law for a lot of those same reasons. And I'm sure that you can attest as I can that it was well worth it. I would do the same thing again, for sure.
Absolutely, in a heartbeat. It was the riskiest thing I ever did to say, okay, I'm going to give up a job, but my heart was truly for those folks who needed a voice when they didn't think that they could have a voice. And to this day, I am overjoyed and fulfilled that people bring me their problems and I can actually help them get where they want to go. So I'm proud I can say I can do that professionally every day, and when I come home, I find ways to do it in the community.
That's wonderful. And that actually is an excellent segue to the next thing I wanted to ask you about, and that is, speaking of folks whose voices need to be heard, this election has shaken an awful lot of people.
Yes.
that I know, and they're struggling we are all struggling still to figure out how to most effectively channel our energies, our anxieties, our commitment to each other. Just tell us a little bit about how that's played out for you and for the folks that you know.
So after the election in November, there was an immediate local action that I saw. I was still the branch president of the Mystic Valley branch. I got calls, I got emails. There were individuals who were not happy with the outcome, and their response to that was, I want to do something local in my community. And I embraced them with open arms. I said, please come, we will talk. There's so much work to be done. But there was an instant response of, we just can't sit on our couches and be at home and allow the nation to move in a direction that we can't accept. We can't simply sit down and say, we see it going down a path that scares us, and we won't be scared, and we must activate and do something. So,
and we are to some degree familiar, because it's been so dominating the public discourse. We're to some degree familiar with the plight of immigrants and with those who would seek to build a new life or to simply escape from situations of dire danger or other extreme circumstances. That's what's been filling the airwaves. However, there are many, many communities who have their own particular anxieties about the administration and the future. Is there anything that is, I'm not asking you to speak for the African American community in any way, but just because you are in conversation, what are the fears, or what are the things that people want to be vigilant, particularly vigilant about with this administration?
The conversations I'm having with other people of color stems from the tone of the campaign. The rhetoric that was put out, whether you liked Trump or you hated Hillary, there was such animosity between the different camps. Now that Trump and there's a Republican president, we are most fearful that he will begin to act out those things that he complained about and talked about during the campaign. When we hear things about an alt-right, a group of folks who are so tied into thinking that because of their skin color that they have or have some right over others, that is scary, that they are now elevated into a position of power in our government. I'm 52. The civil rights struggle took place at a time where I wasn't old enough to grasp it. We know of our history. We know what happens when you demonize one segment of the population. There was a World War II. There was world wars over this. How can we sit back, know history, see this great country of America, a democracy, slip into a situation where one group can be demonized, ostracized, and not given complete opportunities that this country was built upon? And I think the reaction of people of color is, we aren't going to go silently. And I'm empowered by the Women's March. I'm empowered by marches supporting Muslims. I'm empowered by scientists saying we're going to rally. But now that's the next step. We can be out on the street corner one day, but the administration and Trump is going to be there for at least 4 years. Now it's about organizing. Now it's things like Black Lives Matter. We haven't talked much about that, but that is not just a name. It's a national organization where people are meeting and mobilizing, trying to get out clear messages. Some people may not like what that clear message really is, but people are doing more than just going out on street corners and gathering together saying we don't like it. They're trying to make policy changes. They're trying to force people into position to do the right thing, to make them uncomfortable enough so that they have no choice but to do the right thing.
So let's talk a little bit about the Black Lives Matter movement. And I'm going to say that this next question or kind of line of questions is going to come out of the fact that I recently watched 13th, the documentary that is up for an Oscar, and I hope that means that more people see it than otherwise would. But anyway, it traces the history of basically of mass incarceration. It connects current issues of mass incarceration of young African American men to a long, long history of variations on that theme, going back as far as you can go in this country's kind of ugly history. And as part of that film, one of the people kind of giving testimony or speaking and commenting in that film mentioned that Black Lives Matter as a decentralized movement, that's part of its strength. Do you see that the same way?
Well, when Black Lives Matter sort of hit the front page news, as an NAACP member, I sort of viewed it as there's some new folks stirred up about civil rights issues. And it became my job as a black man to begin to learn more about what they meant, what they were trying to do. And through trying to learn more, I learned that they were creating local organizations in different parts of the country. And there was one in Cambridge, and they were organizing around the fact that they understood that different law enforcement agencies had different practices when they encountered a black man on the streets. And the tragic outcome was black men were being executed without thinking by white police officers with the authority of a badge and a gun. And they simply were saying, that is wrong, and we are going to challenge it. So for me, I had to learn more. And I'm glad I was willing to take that next step, because the NAACP, we have a specific brand. We are nonviolent. We are going to resist. We are going to use every method that we can to be nonviolent. Now, a lot of people tried to box in Black Lives Matter as violent, but they're not. They're disruptive. They're intentionally disruptive to call attention to the plight of blacks in this country. And I can say I support that. I encourage that they focus in on there is a problem, and until you realize there's a problem, we're never going to fix it. And I'm okay being a member of the NAACP and supporting Black Lives Matter. And I've always, sort of in that context when I'm talking to other NAACP members, they're saying, hey, what do you think of this Black Lives Matter? It's like, they're the more radical edge of what we're doing. You may not agree with everything that they're doing, but they are absolutely taking the stance of the civil rights movement and bringing it into today's context. So they have my support, and I will engage them like I'll engage anyone else. Do it nonviolently. You have a message. We as the NAACP, we will support you as you are nonviolent, but there is a problem, and it is only through getting to a place where we can now talk about it to begin to resolve it.
So for those in our audience who might be wondering about the distinction, could you draw it out a little?
Sure.
About what you were saying about you would promote or at least endorse or support their being disruptive, not being violent. So
Sure.
what's...
Right. So the NAACP is very protective of its brand. Part of the process with a national office, if we, the branch, wanted to do a protest, there's a special process we have to go through. If other organizations want to be a part of us, we need to understand who's there, what they're doing, and that they will promote this nonviolent activity. Black Lives Matter is a little bit looser. They can say, we plan to go do something disruptive. I don't mean different in that they plan to be violent, because that's never been their issue. It's everyone come in and do this act. So we as NAACP members, we can run to go support them in the activity without that formality. Because if things go a certain way, it's not the NAACP organizing it, we are supporters. That organization has to stand on its own, have its own principles and processes, and they're accepting of people to come to their meetings and be a part of that dialogue, which we absolutely are and will be. But there's a distinction. We have the NAACP brand, 107 years. We've been at this a long time. And here's some new folks with absolutely the right issue, and they're going to take a different tact. And that's okay with us.
Where do you see things going? It's, and believe me, by posing that question, I want to say I understand how incredibly difficult it is for any of us to see through the fog and the kind of tumult of the current moment. But what do you think?
I guess I was born an optimist. I was born hopeful that something good can come out even of something not so good. So the fact that folks are upset about the outcome and willing to speak out about it, willing to come together, maybe it's women's groups, gathers with the religious community, the civil rights community, or the scientific community, and we all come together to make sure democracy works. If that's the outcome of electing Donald Trump, then I think while it hurt at the beginning, the final outcome will be a much, much stronger America. During the campaign, I was always saying to myself, if this man were to be elected, is our democracy strong enough to survive him? Absolutely. I think Republicans, Democrats, Independents believe enough in this country, believe enough in the governing Constitution that even if we don't like the man at the helm, that the systems are in place, that he alone can't destroy what so many people have given their lives to build.
You have spoken well, and I think articulated very well your own path to get from where you were to where you are. What would you say, what do you say? Because I'll bet you do have these conversations with young black men and women, or boys and girls, about how what do you share with them?
Sure. Thank you for asking that question. I actually take great pride when someone would think enough, hey, Neil, can I ask you a question about something like, oh my goodness, I have something to offer and share. And I always find time to have a one-on-one conversation. I don't want it to be rushed. I don't want the noise of something else. Let's go down to Dunkin' Donuts, grab a cup of coffee or whatever it is. Tell me what's on your mind. And I think the best advice that I can give a young person is keep going forward. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to go out and take that big risk. Always avoid saying, I'm gonna not try that today. I'm not gonna try that tomorrow because I think it's hard. It's hard for a reason, and it's okay to keep trying. And myself as an adult, I'll try and give you what support I can. If there's some connection I can make for you, a phone call that I can do, I want to be there and able to do that. And I do that sort of in a self-serving way, because if these young people can achieve their goals, they're going to make the community I'm living in better. It's going to make the community I'm trying to raise my daughter in better. So it's just another way to say, you know what? There was someone along the way that believed enough in me. I'm glad I can be in a position to say, I'm here to listen. I'm here to say, take that risk. There's nothing better, well, I won't say nothing better, but nothing more inspiring than failing and knowing you can get right back up and do it better. Keep at it, keep trying, keep going forward.
So from those shrewd old women in West Medford right through you and to the next generation, a great message to pass along at any time. That's for sure. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much
James,
for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having this conversation with me. Complete pleasure. And anytime you want me back, I'll come running.
Neil Osborne, Esquire, we appreciate him taking the time and you taking the time to join us today. We'll see you again soon.